you and I face a terrifying risk. Waking up to realize years have vanished while we were barely present to actually live them. We rise, march to our jobs, clear messages, consume meals. We converse, fulfill our daily duties, and maintain the illusion of a stable life. Yet beneath it all sits an unexplained void. We let our precious days run on autopilot. Routines blur together. Soon, existence stops being a deliberate practice and becomes merely a series of events happening to a passive observer. Then you confront the mirror and see a stranger. Those eyes look exhausted. The shoulders carry heavy, unexamined years. A quiet philosophical question arises. Where did my true self vanish? Most minds do not break from a single dramatic tragedy. They fade away through daily noise, constant distraction, and silent fatigue. In my practice, I learned what the Stoics knew. When life fractures, the remedy never starts by trying to alter the external world. It requires actively rebuilding the fortress inside your own soul. Mind, body, and spirit. As practitioners, we rely on 3 ruthless Stoic principles to reconstruct ourselves from the ground up, if you dare to apply them. The first rule demands a hard truth that most people simply refuse to pause and recognize. Your inner citadel has been breached. It feels secure because the thoughts mimic your voice and your reactions disguise themselves as instinct. But if you study your mind, you realize external forces dictate a shocking amount of your daily mental and emotional life. Daily life splinters our focus. The news begs for our anger. Social platforms breed toxic, endless comparison. Notifications relentlessly attack our concentration. Slowly, the unexamined opinions of total strangers dictate how we measure our own self-worth and daily progress. Our inner sanctuary drowns in useless noise. We must remember a core Stoic truth. The heaviest chains are never physical. Real slavery is a mind completely stripped of its own mastery. The Emperor Marcus Aurelius penned a private meditation that I read often. His journal still delivers a brutal wake-up call today. You possess power over your mind, never external events. Grasp this philosophical fact, and you forge unbreakable strength. That quote holds the ultimate secret. True power never means wrestling the world into submission. It means maintaining strict discipline over your own internal responses. Yet today, the masses willingly hand over the keys. They consume endless digital trash before their morning even properly begins. They inhale panic, outrage, and envy before practicing a single moment of conscious, grounded breathing. By noon, their entire psychological state lies hostage to cheap algorithms, public outrage, and endless digital interference. Your quiet mind turns into an active war zone. The fatal flaw is missing the exact moment the enemy breached your walls. Stick with me here. Reclaiming your inner territory is step 1 of the Stoic path. It relies on one remarkably basic, yet fierce, mental practice. You must aggressively audit your mental diet. A disciplined body rejects physical poison. Likewise, an iron mind refuses to consume cheap psychological trash. Every single data point you absorb becomes the raw material your brain must digest. Every panicked headline, bitter comparison, or toxic chat carves grooves into your soul. Those marks alter your reality. The Stoics taught that real discipline begins entirely with where you aim your attention. Whatever captures your focus will eventually sculpt your character. Reclaiming your intellect requires deliberately filtering out the trash you feed it. Pay close attention to early mornings. Those first 30 minutes out of bed are not just casual time to throw away. That is the critical window when your intellect is entirely defenseless. Whatever enters the gates dictates the day's entire rhythm. Swallow chaos right out of bed, and you guarantee a day of absolute chaos. Study clarity first, and your mind arms itself with sharp focus. Picture beginning your mornings completely free of noise, strictly focused on training. Instead of scrolling mindlessly, you feed your brain ancient concepts built to harden it. Hard philosophy that sharpens your worldview. Accounts of resilient leaders who faced agony and stood tall. Wisdom that upgrades your logic and intentional action. For a practitioner, reading ceases to be a lazy, passive hobby. It transforms into mental training. Every page builds your independent reason, destroying the urge to blindly react on autopilot. Through daily practice, a profound shift occurs. You stop riding passenger in your own head and firmly step up as its commander. But mere philosophical awareness is never enough. After securing your focus, you must interrogate your life's trajectory. Millions waste decades hunting hollow desires that leave them completely empty. They chase pleasure, wealth, or ease. But those are flimsy external outcomes, not a solid personal identity. So we must ask ourselves the ultimate Stoic question. It is never about what we acquire, but who we choose to become. You and I both know this. Fixate on results, and motivation dies when progress stalls. But anchor yourself in identity, and your daily actions naturally align with who you decide to be. Someone just saying they want to get fit usually wrestles with discipline. But a practitioner who says, "I am someone who honors and fortifies my body," naturally makes daily choices reinforcing that core truth. It sounds minor, right? Yet it rewires your entire drive. You stop running after some faraway mirage. Instead, you practice living right now. In our Stoic study, we learn that character isn't forged in massive leaps. It is hammered out through daily, repeated choices. Every single thought you tolerate reinforces one version of you. Every thought you discard starves it. That is why ruling your own mind is the absolute bedrock for any real personal growth. Leave your mind scattered, and your habits stay scattered. Train your thoughts, and your life finally moves with lethal purpose. The exact second you accept that society has been quietly programming your brain is the exact second your true power wakes up. Because from today onward, you have a choice. You can keep letting modern noise hijack your focus. Or you can start the brutal, quiet work of taking your mind back. Do that, and you grasp a core Stoic truth. The practitioner who commands their own inner citadel holds way more power than the fool trying to control the world. When you finally see how much mental junk you carry from the outside, the next move becomes obvious to us. We have to initiate a mental detox. Just like your body requires clean fuel to thrive, your intellect demands pure input to cut through the fog. So many people try rebuilding their lives from scratch, all while force-feeding their brains the exact same toxic distractions, cheap comparisons, and anxieties that broke them. They pray for an upgrade while clinging to garbage habits. But in philosophy, we know total renewal demands strict discipline at the gates of your mind. You simply cannot forge an iron mind while gorging on trivial media that fractures your attention and ruins your focus. Stick with me here. The first actual practice is simple. For 1 week, guard the first 30 minutes of your morning like an absolute fortress. No mindless scrolling, no social media traps. You ignore the endless text alerts. You lock out the world's chaos completely. Instead, you feed your intellect with heavy truths that actually forge character. Dig into philosophy that breaks your ego. Study real historical figures who walked through absolute hell and never once flinched. Absorb concepts that weaponize your logic and steady your pulse. We aren't looking to be entertained. We are in training. Your brain is either getting sharper or decaying, based entirely on the mental diet you permit. Every single paragraph you consume filters how you see reality. Every mental model you adopt becomes the exact blueprint you use to command life. When you kick off the morning with deliberate study rather than cheap dopamine, a profound shift happens. The mental static fades. Your responses grow measured and calculated. You stop letting the morning dictate your mood. You start with command, but scrubbing the mind clean is just phase 1 of our work. When the chatter stops, a brutal question demands an answer. Where the hell am I actually steering this life? The masses just wander, chasing blurry rewards. They claim they want happiness, wealth, status, or an easy ride. But those empty trophies never fill the void. In our practice, we learn true contentment is never hunted directly. It is simply the byproduct of forcing your daily actions to match your highest character. That is why we never fixate on the prize. We obsess over the person we are actively forging. The gap between wanting a result and being a practitioner is massive. When an amateur says, "I want to drop pounds," they are staring at a fantasy living in the distant future. But when a master says, "I am someone who hardens and respects my physical vessel," the spotlight slams onto right now. Knowing who you are dictates your actions far better than fleeting motivation. See yourself as an iron-willed stoic, and you make tough calls naturally. Label yourself as fragile, and you will blind walk right back into habits proving it. The ancients understood perfectly. Your entire existence is built on tiny daily decisions that slowly chisel out your core identity. If you need your trajectory to shift, you have to tear down and rebuild exactly who you claim to be. We use one basic drill to kick off this mental shift. Grab a pen and draft a statement starting with, "I am becoming." Do not cap that sentence off with some lottery ticket wish meant for a future ghost. End it with the standard you are upholding today. I am becoming a person who speaks the brutal truth. I am becoming someone who punishes the iron daily. I am becoming someone who stares down adversity with a dead, calm pulse. Those aren't empty affirmations. They are blood oaths to the practitioner you vow to be today. Every single action either fortifies that armor or cracks it. Let's prove this together. When your daily grind matches your chosen identity, real, unshakable confidence becomes inevitable. I don't mean the loud confidence chasing applause. I mean the quiet power of keeping promises to yourself. This is how real growth actually happens. Forget those fleeting bursts of motivation. You and I know it's about small daily choices, repeated until they forge your character. Eventually, you wake up and everything feels different. Your focus cuts deeper, your emotional baseline settles, your choices become obvious. That mental noise that used to run your day finally fades out. You see that the outside world is exactly the same, but your internal response to it has entirely flipped. That exact shift is where true freedom starts. As Stoics, we learn that when you anchor your identity in virtue instead of random events, the outside world can hardly touch you. Once you know the person you're building, outside opinions lose their teeth. Those daily distractions that used to eat your time suddenly look like nothing. You stop sleepwalking through the week, just blindly reacting to whatever jumps in your path. Instead, you walk with purpose, steered entirely by the specific mindset you chose to construct. This is when your brain stops taking orders from the world and becomes the master builder of your reality. Once that gear clicks into place, every single choice feeds a deeper personal evolution. But listen, even after you and I start clearing our heads and setting our sights, there is a hidden trap that still catches most of us. It has nothing to do with the world or bad luck. It is the silent cell you built out of stories you have told yourself for decades. These thoughts sound totally normal, almost harmless, but they run the show. Like, I could never pull that off. I don't have what it takes. My window has closed. I am just way too busy. Early on, those excuses feel like honest logic, but they slowly harden into concrete walls blocking your path. Stoic philosophy teaches us that we suffer way less from actual facts than from the dark spins we put on them. Epictetus made it clear, the event itself doesn't wreck you. Your rigid judgment of the event does. Put plainly, your cage isn't made of steel. It's made of tired assumptions you have echoed so many times they feel like the absolute gospel. The scary part is how quietly this happens. One bad break years ago somehow turns into a permanent brand on your forehead. One hard rejection becomes the anchor holding down your self-worth. A single rough patch suddenly proves your life will always be a struggle. Give it time, and those bad habits of thought disguise themselves as cold facts. But drag them into the light, and you see the truth. Almost none of it was ever proven. You just nodded along. In our practice, we call this bad habit assent, buying into a first impression without demanding proof. The second you agree with a weak thought, your body starts acting like it's real. Your actions fold up, your drive dies off, your nerve shatters. Inch by inch, your reality shrinks to fit that tiny mental box. But this exact same rule is our master key out of the trap. If a lie can lock you up just because you bought it, it loses all its leverage the second you stop signing the receipt. Tearing down those invisible walls requires severe attention. I had to train myself to catch those automatic excuses the minute things got tough. A door opens, and your brain immediately whispers that you are out of your league. Stop right there. Take a breath. A problem hits, and the inner critic screams that you'll crack. Hit the brakes again. Don't just swallow the panic. Put it under the microscope. Look at it and ask, is this hard truth or just a ghost story I have been looping for a decade? That split-second pause murders the blind agreement that gives fear its fuel. I use a very blunt exercise to strip this down. Grab a notebook. Write out 3 heavy assumptions that have been dragging your potential through the mud. Don't lie to yourself here. Stuff like, I'm just not wired for this. I'm way past my prime to rebuild. Or, guys with my background never win. Get them on paper, then read them like a total stranger handed you the list. Ask if these are laws of physics or just bruised reactions from old scars. You'll immediately see they aren't facts. They are just weak guesses that got comfortable because you let them stay too long. Now, flip every single one into a command of extreme ownership. I have 0 time transforms into, I am choosing to prioritize what actually matters. I lack the talent becomes, I am building the tools I need through pure grit and deep work. It's too late turns into, as long as I am breathing, I hold the authority to pivot. This mental workout seems basic, but it rewires your baseline completely. Each time you actively rewrite a lie, you kick a leg out from under that weak version of yourself. You starve the character you created out of pure fear, and you feed the warrior you are carving out by deliberate choice. You and I study Stoicism to realize that true freedom starts the day you interrogate your own mind instead of blindly taking its orders. Crushing a bad belief doesn't mean pretending the path ahead is paved and smooth. It means smashing the fake speed limits that only ever existed inside your own skull. Do this daily, and the way you face adversity completely changes. Let's look at our practice together. Moments that once felt like proof of weakness become actual training grounds. Instead of saying, "I cannot handle this," we start asking, "What is this obstacle teaching me?" Rather than backing away from hardship, we step toward it with sharp focus and real discipline. Bit by bit, that unseen mental cage starts to break. Every single time we refuse to accept a weak thought, another piece of our personal freedom is finally restored. Every bold action we take, despite the doubt, pushes the boundaries of our actual lives. In our study of the Stoics, courage never meant having zero fear. It simply means refusing to let panic dictate how far we are willing to go. Once we start interrogating the thoughts running our daily choices, a profound shift happens. The path that felt entirely blocked suddenly cracks wide open for us. Options we used to walk blindly past suddenly demand attention. And we finally realize the ultimate roadblock was never the harsh external world. It was just that quiet, cowardly voice in our own heads, begging us to quit. The exact second we stop taking orders from that weak voice is when the cage unlocks. Once we truly train our minds and smash those hidden barriers holding us back, another harsh truth hits us right in the face. Our minds and bodies are not split. Our physical state directly dictates the sheer force of our daily thinking, our emotional grip, and our actual drive to execute. The ancient masters knew this fact long before modern science caught up. Exhaustion absolutely kills our grit. Neglect fogs our logic, and a physical frame softened by endless comfort destroys the exact willpower our philosophy requires. So the next rule in our practice is brutal but basic. To forge an unbreakable mindset, we have to build a highly capable physical machine. This flesh is not just some vehicle we drag around. It is the literal concrete foundation holding up our entire moral character. Every single choice we make about our physical condition is a direct vote for the caliber of human we are actually trying to become. The Emperor Marcus Aurelius faced this exact battle fighting the sheets. He told his own journal, "When getting up feels impossible, remember we were born to do the hard work of a human being." Meaning, this existence was never handed to us just to stay cozy. It was granted so we could step up, serve, and operate with serious strength. Upgrading our physical state starts by heavily auditing something the masses ignore entirely: the actual fuel we put into our systems every single day. Meals are not just bare survival calories. They are lines of code telling our biology exactly how to perform. Still, most eat entirely blind, driven only by cheap impulses, easy convenience, or quick, temporary pleasure. Eventually, that lazy autopilot builds a frame that feels like solid lead, constantly exhausted and violently resistant to hard work. Listen closely. Our practice demands a much higher standard. Before taking a single bite, pause and ask yourself one very brutal question. Is this fuel building the exact person I am striving to be, or just feeding the weak, lazy habits I am actively trying to kill? This is not about trendy diets or miserable, punishing rules. It is entirely about conscious, deliberate action. Every time we pick real fuel over garbage, we are permanently welding the link between iron discipline and deep self-respect. Gradually, eating stops being a weak game of chasing cravings. It turns into a daily ritual of respecting the single life we possess. Beyond strict nutrition, there is another hidden pillar that absolutely dictates our mental and physical baseline. We need sleep. Most folks treat rest as an annoying tax, burning it away on cheap screens and late-night nonsense. But that debt always comes due. An exhausted brain absolutely cannot execute strategy. Our moods swing wildly. tiny daily setbacks suddenly feel completely unmanageable. The master Seneca warned us, life isn't short, we just throw it away. Every night burned, staring at screens, directly robs us of the literal firepower needed for tomorrow's battles. Proper rest is never laziness. It is highly tactical recovery. Lock in proper sleep, and you instantly sharpen the blade. Your emotions anchor, and your capacity to handle absolute chaos with cold, steady focus skyrockets. Defending our sleep schedule is never a weakness. It is a hardcore boundary that physically arms us for the heavy responsibilities waiting at sunrise. Then there is the most obvious proof of a disciplined practice: real physical movement. Our biology was strictly never engineered to sit perfectly still. When we completely stop sweating, something deep inside us rots. Momentum crashes hard, frustrations get dangerously bottled up, and our thoughts turn completely toxic. In our tradition, we know physical action provides a hard, total reset for both body and spirit. When panic flares, we walk until our lungs calm down. When rage spikes, we sprint until the tension sweats out. When brain fog hits, we pick up heavy iron just to feel our power return. Deliberate motion snaps us back to a core truth: we are not helpless. We are fully capable of exertion. Even a short, brutal workout sends an undeniable message upward to the brain. It proves we still hold the reins and absolutely refuse to stay passive. We don't need elite gym memberships or perfect, pristine conditions. Just 20 solid minutes hitting the pavement, moving weight, or running basic drills is enough to shock a stagnant, rotting system right back to life. Eventually, this physical daily routine completely transcends basic fitness. It becomes our daily signed contract of absolute ownership and responsibility over our own lives. Every drop of sweat becomes undeniable proof that we are willing to grind for the absolute strength we demand. You and I both know the result. The gap closes. Iron discipline in our flesh permanently fortifies discipline in our thinking. You and I both know physical energy fuels mental clarity. Real confidence doesn't sprout from empty words. It builds through gritty, daily action. In my Stoic practice, I've learned that training mind and body makes us incredibly hard to break. When trouble hits, we don't face it broken, fragile, or totally drained. We face those moments as people who actually practice effort and raw endurance. I don't train for vanity or mere appearance. I train to build a concrete foundation, one strong enough to carry the heavy life I demand to live. As that foundation hardens, your internal dialogue shifts entirely. You stop viewing yourself as a person who constantly dodges hard work. You start to see a person fully capable of bearing immense weight, both physically and mentally. I consider that mental pivot the single greatest form of inner strength anyone can cultivate. Once discipline and sweat restore the body, my Stoic studies point to another harsh habit, one that modern society completely ignores today: unchecked comfort. We know that chasing it relentlessly just rots the human spirit. A life designed strictly for ease feels good initially, right? But over time, it silently kills your grit. When dodging pain dictates absolutely every choice, even tiny hurdles feel completely crushing to you. That is exactly why my daily routine includes something called voluntary discomfort. I deliberately choose small, daily hardships just to forge a tougher mind and body. Honestly, it probably sounds a little insane at first. Most folks spend decades desperately trying to erase every inconvenience, but the ancient philosophers grasped a brutal psychological truth. Shield yourself with comfort, and you become glass. But face controlled pain every single day, and you become iron. Seneca heavily emphasized this exact training in his personal letters. Despite massive wealth, he forced himself to sleep on cold floors, wear rough clothes, and eat tasteless, basic rations. He didn't do it because he had to. I study him because he needed to prove he could survive without luxury. Dropping luxury on purpose trained his mind to stay cold and calm through chaos. Marcus Aurelius practiced this exact same discipline while dragging Rome through years of bloody warfare. Even inside a palace, he reminded himself daily, comfort is fleeting. True power comes from hard preparation, never from soft indulgence. Think about it with me. These aren't punishments. They are pure exercises in freedom. When I willingly step into the fire, I prove my mindset doesn't rely on endless convenience to stay steady. You finally realize you're tougher than the lazy habits pulling your strings. Today, I start my discomfort practice with incredibly small choices. Rather than grabbing the softest option out of habit, I force myself to pick the path demanding friction. I take the stairs over the elevator. I sprint for 10 minutes when my weak brain begs me to quit. Black coffee instead of sugar. I step into an icy shower, letting the brutal shock violently boot up my senses. Sure, these moves look trivial on paper, but the mental rewiring is absolute. Each time I choose the hard route, I send my brain a threat. I can handle suffering. Over time, that completely changes how you and I process any heavy challenge. Instead of running away from pain, you finally see hardship as the very forge that makes you lethal. The struggle that used to spark panic simply becomes your daily training. Eventually, this stoic routine builds a quiet, titanium confidence. It isn't flashy, loud, or meant for the cameras. It builds silently, proving you can survive way more than you thought. And the real secret to my practice? Ruthlessly keeping the promises I make to myself. Most people lack confidence not from zero talent, but because they constantly betray their own minor daily commitments. They swear they'll wake up at 5, lift weights, or eat clean. But when the alarm rings, a warm bed whispers them right back to sleep. Every skipped alarm fractures their self-respect. Purposeful discomfort forcefully shatters that pathetic cycle. By executing a tough call anyway, I instantly repair my own self-trust. My brain finally accepts that my spoken word is absolute law. Slowly, the ego transforms. You quit operating as a weak passenger who surrenders to every cheap impulse. You evolve into a person driven by core principles, regardless of the brutal inconvenience. Let me tell you, that shift changes everything. It breeds a rugged self-respect that fake positive thinking will never, ever produce. You have to earn it in blood. The ancient Stoics knew hardship was life's most unforgiving, effective mentor. But I learned not to just sit around waiting for disaster to show up. Injecting controlled stress into my daily routine means I am fully battle-tested long before a real tragedy actually strikes. My body craves the effort. My mind treats heavy resistance like an old friend. So when random chaos finally kicks my door down, it doesn't shock my system at all. It simply feels like another rep I am built to handle. Long-term, practicing this pain makes you dead calm while the rest of the room panics. Where others see annoying inconvenience, I see raw opportunity to grow stronger. Where others run, we step up. You and I are chasing that exact same quiet, unbreakable power the ancients mastered. In my practice, I've found true resilience comes from facing hardship on purpose. Every cold shower, every early morning, and every disciplined habit acts as daily training for the heavy storms life will inevitably throw at us. With each moment of intentional discomfort, you build an unshakable belief in your own grit. You aren't put here to be a slave to comfort. You are here to conquer it. But after sharpening the mind and hardening the body, we face one critical area of our philosophy that often gets completely ignored: the heart. Plenty of folks look tough on the outside. They grind, stay constantly busy, and push forward through life with sheer willpower. But internally, they feel entirely numb. That spark they once had simply dies out. Huge milestones that should mean something pass by completely hollow. They smile during talks, but the connection is totally dead. People misunderstand this quiet void all the time. It is not a weakness or a character flaw. It happens when a heart learns to guard itself from suffering. Over the decades, most of us take hits: brutal disappointment, heavy betrayal, massive regret, or deep loss. To survive those brutal hits, our minds build armor. That armor keeps you from getting wrecked again, but it also cuts off your ability to feel true joy, love, and genuine connection. Slowly, your core becomes locked down. You keep breathing, but the emotional depth that once made life electric simply vanishes. As a student of Stoicism, I know true strength isn't burying your emotions or turning ice cold. The ancients taught that real power means keeping your heart open, even after taking damage. Marcus Aurelius painted a perfect picture of this. He compared a strong mind to a rock enduring endless crashing waves. The ocean hits with extreme force, yet the stone holds firm. The tide finally breaks, but the rock never gives an inch. I applied this image to my own life. Mental toughness isn't feeling nothing. It is standing your ground without shutting yourself off from the world entirely. Here is where you and I have to put in the real work. Rebuilding that inner strength starts with sitting in complete silence. In our hyper-stimulated world, total quiet is going to feel agonizing at first. Strip away the screens, and your brain starts surfacing everything you've buried under your daily grind. But this dead space is exactly where your authentic voice wakes up. Go sit somewhere. No phone, no podcast, zero background noise. Force yourself to be still for 5 minutes and ask 3 brutal questions. First, if failing was impossible, how would I actually live? Second, what am I acting like I don't care about when it secretly matters deeply? Finally, when nobody is looking, who am I really trying to become? This exercise will definitely spike your anxiety. It uncovers the raw ambitions and heavy fears you've dodged for years. Do not run from that tight feeling. That panic is pure proof your spirit is still breathing under all the thick armor and cheap distractions you piled on top. I always write my answers down to force clarity. The harsh truths that bleed onto the page in silence get drowned out by normal days. Finding your voice again also means dropping the massive baggage you have been dragging around for way too long. Pure rage, heavy guilt, bitter resentment, and dark regrets stack up invisibly. Every single ignored issue becomes a permanent weight you carry. The master Epictetus constantly warned his students that external events never actually cause our agony. It's the twisted stories we tell ourselves about them that cause chronic pain. I'm not saying you ignore history or pretend trauma didn't happen. I am saying that gripping those tragedies forever just extends your torture decades after the actual threat has completely vanished. The absolute sharpest tool I use to cut away this dead weight is the deliberate practice of forgiveness. People wrongly assume forgiving someone means endorsing their trash behavior. Let me be clear. Forgiveness is simply a selfish act of ultimate personal freedom. It is the conscious choice to drop a toxic load that is actively draining your energy. Try this practical drill to kickstart the release. Every single morning for 30 days, write out one specific thing you refuse to hold against anyone. Maybe it's a person who deeply wronged you. On other days, you must pardon yourself for the massive failures you stubbornly replay on loop. The goal isn't wiping the hard drive. The goal is breaking the chokehold those dark memories have around your throat. Every single time you log that forgiveness, you chip away at the concrete block inside your chest. Day by day, the crushing pressure finally starts fading. In Stoic philosophy, letting go of a grudge grants you massive leverage. You stop letting ancient history act as the dictator of your current mental state. You start feeling lighter, far more capable of handling life, and ready to connect again. Then, a massive shift occurs. That fortress you built to survive begins crumbling down. What replaces it is an unshakable calm, allowing you to experience everything without breaking under pressure. You finally figure out that staying raw and staying tough work together flawlessly. You don't have to hide from the battlefield to survive the war. The truth is, your character levels up every single time you choose wisdom over toxic bitterness. This is the exact moment you and I beat that numbness. Life turns real again. Conversations become genuine. Drop the dead weight of yesterday. In our practice, cutting ties with the past is how we make room for actual living. Inside that discipline, we rediscover our true human task. You and I are not here just to endure reality, but to master it.